I ran out of bow. It happens in Mozart. It's all about the bowing. The bowing is just really tough in Mozart. You can't really think about what you're doing in the moment. You've got to be thinking about where you're supposed to land in one or two measures. I'm Rebecca, and I'm here on the channel teaching myself how to play the violin again after walking away from music years ago. And this month I'm working on Mozart. I'm working on the third Violin Concerto, and the real challenge with Mozart, it's all in the bowing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the techniques that I'm using to master those bowings in both the fast passages and the really tough parts, the slow ones. To me, the key to figuring out the strategy for the bowing in Mozart is to take a very careful look at every phrase. When we play Mozart on the violin, we're being asked to do the same thing as a singer would be asked to do in singing, to think about how we expend a breath, how we reserve it, when to use a lot, when to not use a lot. And if you take a look even at the opening phrase, there's always a target point. You look at that target point, you think about where you want to be on the bow, and you create a strategy around getting there from one or two measures in advance. Now, here's the target point in the opening phrase. It's right here. So you want to figure it so that you get to about right here. It's kind of in the middle between the lower third and the middle third. And everything you do needs to be a strategy to get there and to get right at that point. Why? Yes, there's a lot of stress in Mozart. There's stress on a note in practically every phrase. You want to get it in a part of the bow that's not going to crack like it will way down here, but that will give it the right amount of stress. You push in with your index finger, you want to give it, but you don't want it to sound creaky. Let me see how I do here. Yeah, I landed right there, and that makes me really happy. You can practice and practice and practice that, but sometimes just thinking about where you're headed on that note in the second measure, it helps you get there. Of course, in addition to just practicing the raw material, there are lots of other things you can do to get there. Now, I found a really good way to practice this is to get back to some of the fingering exercises in Kreutzer, where you're playing a lot of patterns. You know, this is for the fast passages, a lot of patterns, but you're trying to fit it into a way of thinking with the bowings. For example, now go in and play the whole thing that way, and then come back in and reverse the pattern. Now, when you're moving into exercises for the slower movements and for the long sustained passages in Mozart, what you can do, you can start with, you know, some of these same etudes. And that's, you know, good. And then you can just keep adding notes and adding notes. One of the best things you can do, though, when you're learning to play those long sustained tones is to play in triplets. I don't know what it is about triplets, but when you start thinking in triplets, it's like the three notes is neither too much nor too little to help you keep it going in a sustained tone. And one of the first things you can do is kind of practice your scales that way. And then do more and more. Now, you know, it is great to play your scales and triplets and do all that good stuff, but it can get a little bit tedious. If you're getting tired of it, there's a great exercise in the Mazas book. That's an etude book called On Singing Tones. Now, the great thing about this exercise is it puts the crescendos in a place where you have to conserve the bow and do the crescendo at the end of the bow. So let me give this a try and see how well it goes. That's some great phrasing there. I could do it better, and I'm going to keep practicing it because it definitely gets you into the mindset to save your bow and then spend it at the end of that phrase. The last type of exercise I'm going to recommend is playing triplets while you're playing a sustained open string. And that's really good because you're thinking in triplets and you're thinking in a sustained way. You're also getting the feel for how the friction should be on an open string during a sustained tone. And, you know, I'll warn you, it doesn't sound fantastic when you start, but it's a really good practice, and you want to feel it here in your index finger, you want to feel it here in your pinky, and you want to feel it all the way through your arm. So let me give this a try. I'm not making any promises that it's going to sound great, but it's a great exercise. And then, you know, it sounds terrible and you just keep going with it until you can get lots and lots of notes in there, and you're getting a good solid sound across a long sustained tone. It really is one of the hardest things to do on the instrument. So if you've gotten through all this stuff, there is one more exercise that I would recommend, and this is really the acid test, and it's a fantastic exercise for sustained notes, particularly some of those sustained passages where you're doing a lot of string crossings. This is the number 8 etude in the Kreutzer, and it's got a ton of string crossings. It's got some crazy key changes. You got to really think about your fingers, and I'm going to spend a lot of time with this. It's in a triplet formation. I got a lot of work to do on it, so I'll give it my best shot here.